everyone. We're still at the Paradigm Shift Summit, and I've got Dr. Nicole Gruel here with me. Hi Nicole.
Hi Cheryl.
How are you enjoying the summit?
It is mind-opening.
Yes?
Yes, it is very diverse and there's a really eclectic group of people.
There is, isn't it?
There is. There's such a variety of topics.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah.
Now you spoke just before lunch.
I
think
did.
it was. So, and I know that you've talked about your near-death experience.
Yep.
Do you want to tell people what that was about?
Sure. Well, I had a near-death experience through drowning, really. We were whitewater rafting in New Zealand, and the boat tipped over, and I ended up deep underwater, and it was black all around, and then a horizon of light opened up in the black water, and I saw my then living grandmother walking towards me, and my first dog, which was deceased, coming towards me as well at the same time, and I was just a kid. I was 14, so I was really thinking, what are you doing here? And that was about it at the time. Yeah,
that was really interesting and different, because you saw someone in that experience who was living.
Yes.
I've asked you this before. What do you think that means?
So I think it means, and I've only met one other person since. She's in New Zealand actually. I think that my grandmother, that maternal grandmother, she comes from the samurai line, and I understand more and more how important that samurai lineage is for the way I walk the world. So she has been a guide for me. She was then. She, in her passing, was a guide for me to understand the transition between this life and whatever is beyond it, and to help accept being here in this life more fully. So she's been a master teacher for me. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's our link.
Yeah, so I know your story of drowning is a little bit more complicated than what you just said. Can you go into that a little bit more?
Sure. Which piece?
I know that you were kept underwater by a waterfall, weren't you?
I was. So yeah, because we were whitewater rafting, we went under, and I tried to swim, so I had the swimmer's response, and I was pushed like that very deep down, and so hence the water was black all around. Yeah.
So as a child, how did you cope with that?
I didn't know it was something I needed to cope with, and as a 14-year-old I carried on in the world with that simply being an experience that I had. So I didn't question it, I didn't need to explore it. I think what happened was it got parked somewhere very deep down inside me, and within a window of 6 months I actually lost several family members as well. So that was my near-death experience, but then I had this succession of death experiences, and all of that together as a 14-year-old combined was something I just locked away for a long time, because I didn't have the emotional maturity to cope with it at that stage. So it was really something I started to unpack much deeper into my journey, and goodness, when I was probably into my 20s, started to then look back at that experience and go, well, that doesn't happen every day now, big horizon of light opening up, does it? Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So you had another experience too when you were giving birth.
Yes,
that's right.
That's right. Yeah. You remember? Well, absolutely. So that was an experience that helped me come full circle, really. So I was after 90 hours of labour.
What a hero.
Well, this is just a natural mama, really. I was just very determined to do it as naturally as possible, and boy did I learn a lesson that day. So it didn't happen that way in the end, but so there was an intervention, and I got to the hospital. Things went pear-shaped pretty fast after they tried to speed things up. And then they gave me the happy gas, and that was one of the happiest moments of my life. That was amazing. So I'm like, breathing down the happy gas, and then,
no, I'm a natural mother. No, give me the
gas.
gas.
No, I was just like by that point, give it to me. And then spontaneously that exact same horizon of light opened up. Only this time I was conscious of my body in the birthing room with all of the drama and the machines beeping and the chaos of a birthing room. and the horizon of light that was in front of me. It was like a dual consciousness, I guess. I could see both at the same time. And I had two thought processes going on at the same time. So again, one was in the body awareness, and the other was in hysterics at how perfect the situation was in its drama and chaos. And I couldn't laugh out loud, but I felt like I wanted to laugh out loud. My body was kind of, out of it. So that horizon of light opened up, and I knew in that moment, because now I'd come, I'd done my study in the meantime and understood more about this phenomena, and I had the language. I turned to my partner and family and just said, I think I'm having a near-death experience, and one of us might not make it.
That's you or your child?
That's me or the child. Yeah, I knew we were close because there's the horizon of light,
yeah,
so that could only mean, there's something very soon on the other side, right? And there's two of us involved in this, so I logically figured
you and your child, not you and your partner. No, you're going.
Yeah, no, it didn't happen that way. No, so that's what happened, and I also had clarity, total clarity in that moment after the very stubborn natural mama of do a cesarean.
Yes.
It must be a cesarean. And there was total acceptance because I was in the horizon of light. So I just knew the instructions were the right ones. Yeah. So I turned to the nurse, and within an hour there was the child. It all happened very fast after that.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So now I know from then, because I've known you for a little while now. Yes. Since last year, I think it is, isn't it?
Yep.
Through the International Association of Near-Death Studies. That you first contacted me because you were looking for an organisation.
That's right.
In Sydney, where you're based, to go and talk to other people who had experiences. But then that led you to form a group of your own.
It did. So I was looking for IANs in Australia, essentially, which they led me to you. So I'm so grateful for that connection and that conversation. And then I started to understand we're very limited in this conversation here, and there's that wonderful organisation. So initially I wanted to set up a group in Sydney for experiencers. Like Brisbane, Sydney's a very big place, and it's all over the place. And so I thought, this is not going to work. It's too big. Where do we have it? When do we have it? All of that. So I spoke to them, and actually it was Victor Zammit from RA, who we had a conversation about that, and he said, well, why don't you try the online groups? Like they do very successfully. They have a wonderful online space. And so I spoke with IANs about it, and off we went. And of course, once you go online, you're global now.
Yep.
So this whole idea of having a group online, local, just didn't work at all. And next thing I know, I got sucked down this rabbit hole with IANs informing this marvelous online community that they now have, and a lot of their on-the-group coordinators from around the world actually service online groups as well.
So I've been watching your Facebook page, and I know that you've got some pretty interesting stories to tell about apports.
We do.
Apports appearing at their meetings. Now tell us about that.
So an apport is something that materializes out of seemingly thin air. And we have only had 5 gatherings of our Sydney group. In the end, we ran a group anyway. I still wanted to have a group. So we now have a new group. So we've only had about 5 meetings. We're very young. And I think the people I'm about to mention won't mind me mentioning, because I know that they've been public about their story with this. So we have in the group a psychic, material psychic. Is that the correct term?
Yep.
Who comes? And he comes with his partner, and what happens around him is things will materialize out of thin air. And so we have had, after 3 different speakers, something come up, and the first was a little love heart pendant, a little silver one. That speaker was sharing her story for the first time in such a public way, at that depth. So that was a big day for her. And in a way, as a sign of gratitude, that's, the conclusion that everyone was there came to, was it was a sign of gratitude from Spirit to say, here you go, something showed up for you. So she was simply walking across the room, and where there was nothing on the ground before, after she had walked there was a silver pendant. And I think it was the partner of the psychic noticed it and picked it up and said, this is for you. And here we go. Then we had another lady come and speak who again hadn't shared much of her story either publicly, because we're a new group, we want to get to know everyone in the group, right, who's sharing. And that lady ended up going home, but before she went home, the partner of the psychic said, I'm having a vision, and described the heart exactly to a T. And they both went, okay. And then she went home, and it was sitting there right on her bed as soon as she arrived home. And she said to her children, do you know what this is? They didn't, they had no idea. And so it wasn't planted there by anybody in the family. So that was the second one that came, and they actually look very similar, the first one and the second one, the hearts. Now the third one happened just the other day. We had the lovely Karen Swain, who was out there speaking, the teacher of deliberate co-creation, conscious creation. Hi Karen! And so Karen was sharing her story, which was so beautiful to hear, because she often interviews others, but she got to share this time around. Really lovely story. Anyway, Karen was chatting to the guy, Marcus is his name, and saying how much she wanted one of those as well. And sure enough, just as she said that, something popped out and hit Marcus on the head or the shoulder, gave him a bit of a fright, and there on the ground was a little crystal. Just like that, and there it was, and they both knew. So 3 now that have popped up.
Crazy.
After our meetings. And we all just laugh. We're like, well, that's the kind of stuff that happens in these groups.
Yes. Do you think any of that's related to the switching on of certain abilities by people who have near-death experiences?
So the physical medium, he had a near-death experience, and certainly, I, from what I understand, his gift was switched on afterwards. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, and people do, don't they? They have all these incredible gifts that I find that either people are enhanced with the gifts that they've already got, so say creative abilities are deepened, and some become really open channels and just do these prolific works. And for other people, they end up with these gifts that were totally unrelated to who they were before. And I think for them, the integration is a more challenging piece, because then it's like, what is this?
Yeah.
And what do I do with it? And do I even want it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of conversations here at the ship this weekend just about people who are dealing with those sorts of things. So just in closing, I was just going to comment, and you've probably seen this too, that those gifts, if you want to call it that, but those abilities get triggered in a whole range of experiences, not just near-death experiences. I know myself with people who report close encounters, people who walk in crop circles, people who have all types of experiences, and they just get triggered. And it's like human beings have these abilities, not that we particularly want them, but they're there for some sort of reason. Why do you think that is?
You know, and I think that's such a great point, just to backstep. I don't think it's the type of experience we have. It's interesting, it's great to talk about and explore, but I've come to the conclusion that's not even the most important piece anymore. It really is what then? What do we do with them? What happens afterwards, right? However you were turned on, then what? And what do we do with them? You know, we have a planet that's burning. We live on a planet that is burning, and there's a whole heap that we could all do in many different ways. And it's simple. It doesn't have to be grand mission stuff. It can be as simple as acts of kindness, just being kind to one another, just being warm to other human beings. Just even walking the world in that way is a beautiful practice. That seems difficult for some people, even that alone.
Now, you've written a book.
I have.
What's it called?
The Power of Notes. Which is, so notes are non-ordinary transcendent experiences. So the power of notes, how non-ordinary transcendent experiences transform the way we live and love and lead.
Lovely.
Yeah.
And people can get a hold of that through your website?
They can get a free copy of the book, actually. So jump onto my website and go grab yourself a free copy. You'll see a little banner up the top, and it will say grab your free copy here. So you go ahead and do that, and we will talk online there.
So what's your website, web address?
Right, thank you. Dr. Nicole, Nicole, Gruel, Gruel.com. We'll put it in the comments.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nicole. That's
Thank
really
you,
interesting.
Sheryl. Thank you. It's
Thanks
a pleasure always.
Okay. Great. Thanks. Bye.